Today we go on to Sutta number 5 in the volume SD48, SD48.5. Cūḻa Hatthi Padôpama Sutta. The lesser discourse on the elephant's hoofprint parable, M27. So here we have, actually there are two suttas called the Hatthi Padôpama Sutta. If you have a Cūḻa, usually as a rule you have the Hatthi Padôpama Sutta. But here apparently this Cūḻa Hatthi Padôpama Sutta is slightly longer than the other one, and it's also better known. It's about, in a sense, it's about declaration of faith by the Brahmin Jāṇussoṇi, who meets the wanderer Pilotikā. Now Jāṇussoṇi, as you know, very often sees the Buddha. For a Brahmin, he has deep faith in the Buddha, and he often meets the Buddha and asks all kinds of questions about life, death, about training, and so on. And whenever he meets someone who has met the Buddha, he'll be very excited and ask him, what did the Buddha teach you? What do you think of the Buddha? So this, in fact, is the opening of the sutta, the Cūḻa Hatthi Padôpama Sutta. In this case, Pilotikā has met the Buddha, but no details are given. In the Chinese version, the Agama Suttas, it is some details are mentioned, what the Buddha taught him and so on. But here, on his way, on his departure, he meets Jāṇussoṇi in town, in Savatthi, and Jāṇussoṇi asks him, what do you think of the Buddha, and so on. And then later, Jāṇussoṇi sees the Buddha, and then the Buddha gives him this long teaching, recorded as the Cūḻa Hatthi Padôpama Sutta. And again, at the end of the sutta, Jāṇussoṇi takes refuge. In fact, I've counted through all the suttas, it takes refuge at least a dozen times in the sutta. So it's a man of great faith. Of course, his refuge going is more of a ritual refuge going, but he has deep faith for a Brahmin. We are not told whether he attains any state or not, there's no mention of it, but there are many suttas to his name. So from that kind of testimony, we can be sure that towards the end of his life, he will surely have died at least as a streamer, if not attain it earlier on, or even some higher states. Right, so the sutta is on page 112 of SD 48.5. Thus have I heard. At one time the Blessed One was staying in Anathapindika's park in Jeta's Grove near Savatthi. Now at that time the Brahmin Jāṇussoṇi was living in Savatthi in the bright of day, in other words at noon, in an all-white mare-drawn chariot. He's famous for his trademark all-white chariot drawn by white horses or white mares. Now at the same time, the Brahmin Jāṇussoṇi saw the wanderer Pilotikā coming from afar. This Pilotikā he has a very interesting name. Although he's a man, his name is in the masculine form, Pilotikā, the long ending R. When he saw the wanderer Pilotikā, he said this to him, "Now, Master Vacchāyana, where have you come from in the bright of day?" So here we know the family name of Pilotikā is Vacchāyana or Vacchāyana in Sanskrit. And then Pilotikā replies, "I've come, sir, from the presence of the Blessed One." "What do you think, Master Vacchāyana, of the reclus Gautama's clarity of wisdom? Do you think he is wise?" Okay, so Jāṇussoṇi asks this Pilotikā, and Pilotikā replies humbly, "But who am I, sir, that I would know the reclus Gautama's clarity of mind?" This is an excellent example of someone who respects the Buddha to the extent that he he feels that the Buddha's wisdom is so great, it's just impossible for him to say anything about it. Because if he were to say, yes, the Buddha's wisdom is great, it's almost like he's also acknowledging in a subtle way that, oh, I know this because my wisdom is just as great as his, or even greater than his. So he says, who am I that I should know the Buddha's clarity of mind or his wisdom? Indeed, one must surely have to be the reclus Gautama's equal too, to know his clarity of mind. Right? So, it's just like, let's say, I'm just a secondary school student, okay, then the professor comes along and he gives a very good talk on science, and I say, oh, wow, this is a great talk. He gave an excellent talk. Everything was right. So in saying that, I'm subtly claiming that I know better than this professor, or I'm as good as this professor. So this is how a student, in other words, shows respect to the teacher. So he says, I don't think I don't know what to say, because I'm not the Buddha's equal. I definitely do not know more than him, so I can't really say his wisdom is great. Of course, he's saying also he does benefit from the teaching. And then he says, truly Master Bharadwaja praises the Gautama with high praises. Okay? Surely Master Gautama is praised by the best amongst devas and humans. So here, here I think it's Pilotikā speaking still. Praise by the praise. So it says, well, if someone is a very noble person, praised by the praise, it's talking about like the kings, for example. Those who are really virtuous people, the monks themselves even, the saints. Among devas and humans, even among the devas, there may be some good, some saints. So if they were to praise, that would be valid, in other words. Now, indirectly, we learn something from this. In other words, we should not take too badly when people criticize us, especially people who do not understand the nature of our work or don't even know us, and they talk some bad things about us. Everyone has a right to say something, criticize something. It's just like you see some a really good play or some interesting books, and then you have the critics talking all kinds of bad stuff about the works. The interesting thing is these critics themselves do not write any better book or a better play that they're criticizing. Of course, literary criticism is quite different from our situation here. But the point is, the spirit in which criticism should be taken is still the same. People have the right to say good or bad about us, but we should not be unduly troubled by such things. We should be troubled if someone wiser, someone we truly respect, tells us we've done something wrong, and we really must find out what is it and correct ourselves. So otherwise, it's just the opinion of another person, and the person could well be wrong. So this is simple as this episode may be, it has got some very interesting implications for us. Okay, then Pilotikā does kind of give his opinion actually. In answer to a question asked by Jāṇussoṇi, Jāṇussoṇi asked, what reason, or here the word atta can also mean benefit, what benefit does Master Vacchāyana see in regarding the reclus Gautama with such deep faith? So he's very curious, he says, what is it that you see in the Buddha that arouses such great faith in you? And this is the teaching that or rather this is the impression that Pilotikā has, and he tells Jāṇussoṇi, and later Jāṇussoṇi will report back to the Buddha. And then the Buddha will give a long discourse. Now Pilotikā speaks. He says, "Suppose, sir, a skilled elephant forester were to enter an elephant forest and were to see in the elephant forest a great elephant footprint, long and wide. He would come to the conclusion, 'Sir, what a great bull elephant this is.' Right? So he sees a footprint and says, 'Wow, this is must belong to a big elephant.' Even so, sir," says Pilotikā, "when I saw the 4 footprints of the Blessed Gautama, I came to the conclusion the Blessed One is the fully self-awakened one. The Dharma is well spoken by the Blessed One. The community of disciples is well practiced." Now, these are 3 famous lines which are sometimes used in monasteries when they are bowing down before the shrine in communal worship. The first line, the Blessed One is the fully self-awakened one. Samma Sambuddho Bhagava. The Dhamma is well spoken by the Blessed One. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo. The community of disciples is well practiced or good in conduct. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho. So in the Thai tradition especially, you find they use these 3 lines plus a gesture of respect, bowing down 3 times before the shrine. They say, Samma Sambuddho Bhagava, or they add the word Arahang in front. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava. And then the Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivadeni. I bow down to the Buddha. Then the second bow, Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo, Dhammang Namassami. I bow before the Dharma. And then Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho, Sanghang Namami. I bow before the Sangha. Alright, so here, back to the Pilotikā statement, it says there are these 4 footprints of the Blessed One. What are the 4? Here, sir, I see some kshatriyas, or the nobles, intelligent, subtle, experienced in debate, who go about hair-splitting, it seems, tearing apart the views of others with their gathered wisdom. They hear thus, "Sirs, I hear the reclus Gautama will be arriving in such a village or market town." They come to question him, thinking we will approach the reclus Gautama and question him. If we question him this way, he will answer thus, and we will refute his doctrine thus. If we question him that way, he will answer thus, and we will refute his doctrine thus too. So, in other words, these kshatriyas, they know the Buddha is in town, so to speak. They say, "Okay, let's go to the Buddha and we debate with him, and we will refute him." So then they approach the Buddha. They hear the Buddha is in town or in the village, they approach the Buddha. They approach the reclus Gautama. The reclus Gautama instructs, inspires, rouses, and gladdens them with a Dhamma talk. They, having been instructed, inspired, roused, and gladdened by the reclus Gautama's Dharma talk, indeed do not ask the reclus Gautama any question. How would they ever refute his doctrine? In fact, they become disciples of the reclus Gautama. So he's saying that the kshatriyas, this is the first group that he's mentioning, think of challenging the Buddha, but instead they are so inspired by his teaching, they actually become his disciples. Pilotikā continues, he says, "When I, sir, saw the first footprint of the reclus Gautama, I came to the conclusion the Blessed One is the fully self-awakened one. The Dhamma is well spoken by the Blessed One. The community of disciples is well practiced." So here again, we see Pilotikā actually mentioning the three ways of respecting the Buddha. In other words, the Blessed One is fully self-awakened one. The Dharma is well spoken by the Blessed One. And the community of disciples is well practiced. So this is the first footprint. Okay, like we are still on page 114. Now, so Pilotikā continues. So here you can see his praise of the Buddha is actually based on what are called the four classes. He's saying that the kshatriyas, that is the warrior class, or today you might say the politicians, and that the brahmins, the priests, today would be the educated class, the academic people, the teaching class, if you like. They also come to challenge the Buddha, try to knock him down, so to speak. But when they hear the Buddha teaching, they're inspired. And they have a change of heart. Instead of debating, quarreling with the Buddha, trying to knock him down, they actually become his disciples. So he says this is the second hoofprint of the Buddha, the brahmins, in other words. Then the third hoofprints are the houselords, Gahapati. Now what's interesting here is the Buddha doesn't, the Pilotikā doesn't mention the four classes. He mentions four groups of ancient Indian society. The first two, of course, belong to the classes, or castes. But the third group are the houselords. The houselords, Gahapati, these are a very important group in this new society of India, if you like, because in the Buddha's time, you see this social growth, so to speak, even economic growth. India was changing. It was called the Second Iron Age. And one of the reasons why Indian society in the Buddha's time was was growing is because of the houselords. They were propertied lay people. They have property, they have houses, and they're the ones who bring wealth to the country, if you like. So understandably, they have enough time and inclination to meet religious teachers and debate with them. Well, this makes sense because if you bring in just the merchants or the menial workers to debate the Buddha, they're not likely to be so intellectual, in other words. So here the houselords would come to challenge the Buddha. This is in section 6.1. And then when the Buddha comes to town or to the village, they meet the Buddha, they ask him all kinds of questions, they try to challenge him, but then the Buddha gives his Dhamma talk, they listen, and then they're very happy. So this is a third group. They convert, they become the followers of the Buddha. This group is in fact the most important. We will come back to this group in a while, because these are the people who actually renounce the world to become monks and nuns, the biggest group. And the fourth footprint are the recluses themselves. These are the holy men, of which there are many in India. This is section 7.1. Section 7.1. Furthermore, here I see some recluses or sāmañña, intelligent, subtle experience in debate, and so on. So they try to challenge the Buddha, but the Buddha gives them a Dhamma talk, and they are inspired. Now look at the way the Buddha talks, the Dhamma 7.4. They, having been instructed, inspired, roused, and gladdened by the Buddha. So here you see the Buddha giving the Dhamma talk in stages. First, the Buddha mentions what he's going to teach. Okay, instruct. Then, inspired means what? He makes them feel interested, happy. And then roused, that means here, prepare them for action, to take a step further what they have heard in the Dharma. And at the end of the talk, they are gladdened, they feel joyful. So they go away joyful. So in other words, the Buddha was really a good public speaker. One important point to notice here is all these words, and you find the last three words especially, inspired, roused, gladdened, they have to do with joy. The Dharma brings joy. Definitely not fear, but joy. So understandably, all these people hear the Buddha, decide to join him, or at least don't feel like refuting him. So this is the fourth footprint. So this is what Pilotikā is very happy with the Buddha. He's very impressed with the Buddha because the Buddha is a great debater, great teacher. He could easily convert any of these four groups of very intelligent people: the kshatriyas, the brahmins, the houselords, and the recluses. So this is his impression of the Buddha. In other words, it's more of a social kind of idea. He sees the Buddha as charismatic, if you like. Not so much in the terms of Dhamma teachings, in other words. This we will know when the Buddha gives his reply. Whether Pilotikā was present during the reply or not, we're not told here. It's possible he was there, but maybe he could have gone back with Jāṇussoṇi to see the Buddha. But then again, it's unlikely. Maybe he went his way, and then the Jāṇussoṇi went to see the Buddha. Okay, let's continue. 8.1, section 8.1, on page 116. So, when this was said, meaning when the Pilotikā mentioned, ends his testimony on the Buddha, the four footprints, when this was said, the Brahmin Jāṇussoṇi descended from his all-white mare-drawn chariot, arranged his robe to one side, like most of what monks would normally do today when they enter a monastery, putting his palms together in the Blessed One's direction. So here we have this, he turns in the face direction of the Buddha, almost like what the Muslims would do today. Uttered this inspired udana, inspired words, thrice. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa, 3 times. So this is one of the places where you find the locus classicus for this verse. Next time someone asks you, well, Buddhists like to say Namo tassa, where did they get it from? You can say from this section here, section 8.1 of M27. Meaning homage to him, the Blessed One, the Arahat, the fully self-awakened one. So here, again we see Jāṇussoṇi as someone full of faith. It's just like Pilotikā in a sense. He says, wow, this is a great thing you're telling me. I totally agree with you. So he shows his respect to the Buddha also. Now here you see a Brahmin. He's not really officially a Buddhist, he's still a Brahmin. He's the king's purohita, in fact the king's priest. So he is very respectful of the Buddha. He's full of faith in the Buddha. So he turns in the direction of the Buddha and he puts his palms together and gives his respects by saying the Namo tassa 3 times. Then he says, perhaps sometime or other we too would meet the Master Gotama. Perhaps we too would have some conversation with him. This is the first time I know that Jāṇussoṇi says such words. There's a possibility that this sutta records his first hearing of the Buddha, hearing about the Buddha. He may know about the Buddha, but it's probably the first time you actually hear something so wonderful about the Buddha. So he says, perhaps one day I'll meet the Buddha and be able to talk to him too. It's possible. I'm not saying 100%, but it's possible. No? So in other words, by studying in detail such suttas, we can arrange all the suttas in which Jāṇussoṇi talks. There are at least a dozen such suttas, and you can have some idea to see his Dhamma progress, if you like. No? Then, so this meeting with Pilotikā ends there. Okay, we're not told where Pilotikā goes. We are told that Jāṇussoṇi goes to see the Buddha. Like I said, there are 2 possibilities here. Jāṇussoṇi goes to see the Buddha, Pilotikā goes his way, or both went to see the Buddha. 9.1. Then the Brahmin Jāṇussoṇi approached the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with the Blessed One. When the cordial and friendly greetings were concluded, he sat down at one side. Then he relates what he has taught with Pilotikā. He tells the Buddha everything. 9.3. When this was said, the Blessed One said this to the Brahmin Jāṇussoṇi. Now, Brahmin, to that extent, the parable of the elephant footprint is neither fully detailed nor complete. Right? So here, Jāṇussoṇi tells the Buddha of the 4 footprints which Pilotikā mentioned. Buddha says, well, this parable which Pilotikā has brought up is not complete, it's not detailed, right? In other words, there's something more to be taught. What's interesting here is Pilotikā is giving a worldly praise of the Buddha. So what the Buddha is going to say here now is how he should really be praised in terms of the Dharma, not in terms of charisma or his influence on the intelligent people in the country. Then the Buddha says, and Brahmin, as regards how the parable of the elephant's footprint is fully detailed and complete, listen now to it, Brahmin. Pay close attention, I will speak. Yes, Bhante, the Brahmin replies. Now here, another interesting point to note is this: the Buddha is not talking to the monks. If the Buddha is talking to the monks, he will ask the monks, do you know what this extra thing, this real thing, the details about the parables are? And then the monks will say, oh, we don't know, Bhante, you are our teacher, please tell us, you know. In other words, the Buddha wonders if there are among the monks anyone who knows the answer, maybe Sariputta or Ananda, you know. But here, the Buddha doesn't ask that question because you can suppose that Jāṇussoṇi is new, so the Buddha feels that he should continue with the teaching anyway. And the teaching starts here. The parable of the elephant footprint starts here. Okay? The Blessed One said this. This is another keyword you can see. The moment you see the line, the Blessed One said this, that means the actual teaching starts there. Now, this next section on the kinds of elephants is very interesting because, it shows the Buddha's expertise, if you like, on the animals of his day. In another sutta called the Kalunka Sutta, the Buddha talks about 8 kinds of horses. And here, the Buddha talks about 3 kinds of hoofprints of elephants. And the ancient Indians will love this kind of teachings because he's talking about things they're very familiar with. And then he goes on to what he really wants to teach. The parable of the elephant's footprint is just a starting, even an excuse to give the Dharma, if you like. It's a bridge for the common people to cross over. So the Buddha says, 10.2, suppose, Brahmin, a skilled elephant forester were to enter an elephant forest and were to see in the elephant forest a great elephant footprint long and wide. Okay, this first part is very similar, in fact identical if you like, with what the idea of Pilotikā. Then something is different here. However, as a skilled elephant forester, he would not come to the conclusion, sir, what a great bull elephant this is. A bull elephant is a male elephant. So the Buddha says, if the elephant forester is clever, is wise, he would not jump to that conclusion. That although the hoofprint of this elephant is big, that it is a male elephant, it is a bull elephant. Why is that? For Brahmin, there are in the elephant forest cow elephants, female elephants, called Vamanika, which translates to English as she dwarfs. I have left the Pali word or Sanskrit word Vamanika because we don't really have an English name for this. This is the original name for the kind of elephant. And so what the Buddha is saying here, even the female elephants of this kind, of this subspecies, Manika, they have large hoof prints too. They're a large hoof, so obviously their hoof print will be big too. So it need not be a bull elephant. So this clever elephant forester follows the hoof prints. Then he sees in the elephant forest another hoof print, long and wide, and grazing signs on high, meaning in the trees. So these elephants, they are plucking some very nice, juicy shoots from the tree, and their tusks would graze against the tree trunk. So you can notice there are marks on the tree trunks. However, as a skilled elephant forester, he would not come to the conclusion, "Sir, what a great bull elephant this is." Why is that? For Brahmin, there are in the elephant forest cow elephants called Uccakarika, or the tall prong tuskers. The prong, that means their tusks are very long. And these are cow elephants, female elephants, and they also have large hooves. And in a sense, you might say their hooves are larger than the previous kind of elephant, the Vamanika. He follows the hoof prints and then sees in the elephant forest another hoof print, long and wide, and grazing marks on high branches, tusk scrapings on high. Now, in the first case, I think the markings could be by the side of the elephant, perhaps rubbing against a tree. But here is the tusk scraping against the tree. So these are even taller elephants, if you like. So here again, the Buddha says this very skilled elephant forester does not jump to the conclusion, this is a big bull elephant. It doesn't say that. It says, no, let's follow. And he follows the hoof prints again, and then he sees another big hoof print, and again it doesn't jump to the conclusion that it is a bull elephant. This is on section 10.7. Why is that? For Brahmin, there are in the elephant forest cow elephants, female elephants called Uccakarika. They are called the tall bud tuskers. They are even bigger, and they have large hooves, and the hooves are bigger still. So this elephant forester follows the hoof prints, and finally he comes to one really big footprint, and then he sees the real bull elephant. Then only he says, this is the hoof print of the bull elephant. So here you can see, this is a mundane statement actually, but the audience love this kind of stories. The Buddha is talking about 4 kinds of elephants. 3 are females, the last one is the bull elephant. Of course, if you like numbers, you can say, this is interesting. I know what the Buddha is talking about. These 4 kinds of elephants, these are 4 kinds of saints, right? Well, you can say that if you like. And the Buddha is very good in combining his teachings with the natural events, if you like. Yeah? So, there you are. These are the 4 kinds of elephants, and the bull elephant is the last one, and his footprint is the biggest. That would be the Arahant, of course, if you know the Buddha's teaching. Then, 11.1, the Buddha continues, even so, Brahmin, that means, even so. So now the Buddha is going to link his teachings to the Dharma. Alright? Now you notice, 11.1 begins with even so. The starting of the teaching, 10.2, the Buddha says, suppose. Suppose. Suppose here, that means it's not the real thing. It's something we use to link our attention to something that's to come, that's the Dharma. And then the Buddha connects this idea we're familiar with in the world to a higher teaching. 11.1, even so, Brahmin, there arises here in the world the Tathagata, the Buddha, an Arahat. So it says, well, when there is the Buddha, then 11.2, this Buddha realizes to his own knowledge, he awakens to the Dharma, And then, so you have the presence of the Buddha, presence of the Dharma, and then 11.3, he teaches the Dharma, good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end, endowed with the meaning and phrasing. He proclaims the holy life in its entirety, complete and pure. So here you have the Buddha and the teachings available, and he teaches the Dharma. And then comes the interesting part, renunciation, 12.1. There you see, the first word there is a house lord or a house lord's son, hearing the Dharma, gains faith in the Tathagata. So here, this sentence doesn't say a brahmin, it doesn't say a kshatriya, it doesn't say a reclus, it says a house lord, a house lord's son. Okay? One possibility is that maybe in the audience you find there are lots of house lords that day, I suppose. But for some reason, some scholars have come to the notion that the house lords, they form a very important group of people who renounce the world. Why? Because they have a lot of things to renounce, in the manner of speaking, because they are very rich. So if they really leave home, they really make a big sacrifice. Maybe even a bigger sacrifice than some of the kshatriyas. Some of the kshatriyas may have only a piece of land as a farm, for example. But these house lords, they own a lot of property. So when they give up to renounce, they give up a lot of worldly things. So that's why they are mentioned especially here. So why did they renounce? Why do they renounce the world? This is given in page 118. The household life is stifling, a dusty path. The life of renunciation is like the open air. It is not easy living in a house to fully practice the holy life in all its purity, like a polished conch shell, right? So they're so inspired. They really want to renounce the world, they want to practice. In other words, they've attained some level of letting go. They're really calm. They did not want to leave home because of some problems or difficulties. Indeed, they are very successful people, but they just feel they want to really practice more deeply. Then they decide, what if I were to shave off my hair and beard, put on the saffron robe and go forth from the household life into homelessness? Then after some time, he abandons all his wealth and relatives, shaves off his hair and beard, puts on the saffron robes, goes forth from the household life into homelessness. Right? So this is a typical pattern you see of renunciation. Of course, just reading it like this, we might have the idea that, renunciation means you actually give up your family, as mentioned here. But from the stories of the great saints and all this, how the Buddha helps people again and again, another clear and important pattern emerges, the meaning of renunciation. For example, the Buddha himself goes back to see his own father, and he does not say that you're no more my father. He's still the father. See? And so in other words, in becoming a monk, the monks, the nuns, they are not really denouncing a family. It's different. Denounce is different from renounce. Okay, renounce means it's like a durian. It's very ripe, so it falls from the tree, right? So if someone is spiritually ripe, this person is free from the family. So it doesn't denounce the family. A durian is still a durian, even if it drops from the tree. You see? So a person who renounces the world, in other words, the parents are still parents, brothers are still brothers, but the concept of family is much bigger. Anyone can approach this renunciant, this monk or nun, for help, for assistance, right? We have, for example, in the Pindola Bharadwaja Sutta, where Pindola tells the king, Udena, he says, the king, Udena asks this monk, how does these young monks able to be so calm and happy, although they are not even married, they're still young people. So one of the answers the Pilotikā gives was that they respect women who are younger than them as daughters, women who are about the same age as sisters, and women are older than them as parents, as mothers. Okay? So here you see, in other words, a socially appropriate relationship. On a bigger scale, the monks, in other words, relate to others, to anyone, to any of us, to you, as part of his bigger spiritual family. That is why you notice if you meet a good monk, you find you can talk more freely. You want to talk more freely with such a wonderful, saintly person than you would with your own parents. So in that way, you find you can solve your problems better because there's someone wise to listen to you, and you know this person will tell the truth, and this person will keep your secrets, and so on. So a renounced person, a renunciant in other words, is not someone who totally renounces a family. He leaves a small biological family for a bigger spiritual community. So, having said that, now we come back to the section 13 of the sutta. Now the rest of the sutta is well known. It's called the sāmañña phala sequence. The Buddha talks about how someone joins the order, practices, meditates, and attains various levels of awakening, and then becomes an arhat. Now what's interesting here, we usually find this kind of sequence in the first 13 suttas of Digha Nikaya. But here in M27, Majjhima number 27, we find a similar sequence. So in other words, this sequence is very ancient. So here I will just summarize for you all these very familiar teachings. Basically here the Buddha is talking about what happens when a person renounces the world. He goes through the 3 trainings, the tisika, training in moral virtue, the first part of this conclusion here, and then a training in mental cultivation, and the last part, the training in wisdom. Let's look at the first part, the training in moral virtue, or cultivation of moral virtue. You can see the subheading there, A, cultivation of moral virtue. Having thus gone forth and possessing the monk's training and way of life, having abandoned the destruction of life, he abstains from destroying life. He dwells with a rod and sword laid down, conscientious, merciful, compassionate for the welfare of living beings. So this is the first basic precept. And then the second one is a second precept, it's a kind of like a 5 precepts extended. Not taking and not given. Number 3, avoiding incelibacy. Now this rule is even more strict for the renunciants. No sex at all. They abstain from incelibacy. Here, because a renunciant does not have a family. To have a family means you're going to continue living in the world, getting involved with worldly things and so on, whereas the renunciant takes a different kind of life, the spiritual life of renunciation. In a sense, his practice also helps the world to be happy by letting go of the world. It's just like the durian's fruit again, falls from the tree, and then the sweet fruits are eaten by people, and then we use the seed to grow more durian trees, because without the durian fruit, when the old durian tree dies, there will be no more durian trees. So, but this durian that renounces the durian tree helps the durian tree to continue growing, so to speak. So here you see, by renouncing the world, the renunciants are able to give happiness and quality to family life, so that this family can perpetuate itself in a wholesome way, happy way, as human beings. Now, so these are the so-called novices precepts that we have mentioned here. These are 3 of them dealing with the body actually, not killing, not stealing, and no incelibacy. Then the next 4 precepts deal with right speech, keeping away from false speech, from divisive speech, from abusive speech, from idle chatter. These are very basic kind of training rules for the monks. And then comes the more monastic rules. Okay, rule number 8 is He abstains from damaging seeds and plant life. Why is this given prominence here? Because in the Buddha's time, society was still very agricultural. Right? So imagine there's so many monks, if they go around trampling on seedlings, the plants would, it would affect the crops. Right? And they have to respect seeds so that you don't destroy plants. Right? And also when they do their washing and so on, they do not pour this oily water over living plants or in the water where there are living beings and so on. There are lots of rules like that. Then you have other precepts. He eats only one meal a day, no evening meal and so on. Abstains from dancing, singing, music and so on. And from wearing garlands, from high luxurious seats, and from accepting gold and silver. In other words, doesn't use money, because that's the way of the lay people. Once you use money, that means you have some kind of power or control. You can get any pleasure you want. So he gives all this up. So in other words, he is totally dependent on the householder or the lay people for physical support. But spiritually, the renunciant is independent. Next section, the renunciant abstains from wrong livelihood, from accepting any kind of uncooked grain, from any kind of offering of living animals. Because it will mean you have to take care of these animals and you have to kill them to eat, and all this wrong livelihood for a renunciant. And next page, he abstains from accepting fields and land, from running messages, from buying and selling. Right? So you can see buying and selling clearly mentioned here. So it shows that it has nothing to do with money. He abstains from dealing with false scales, false metals, cheating people, in other words. These are all done by people of the world. He abstains from bribery, deception, and fraud. He abstains from wounding, executing, imprisoning, highway robbery, plunder, and violence. Any kind of violence for that matter. So, this is actually a very short section on the precepts. This gives an idea at the time when, somewhere in between, the middle of the Buddha's teaching ministry, if you like, when the rules were there, but not too many. All these rules are there for the main purpose of preparing the body to cultivate the mind. So this is the next section. Page 120, you can see B, cultivating of samadhi, of mental cultivation. So here, this is a very beautiful passage, the life of a monk, section 14. He, meaning the monk or renunciant, is content with robes to protect his body, and with alms food to sustain his belly, and wherever he goes, he sets out, taking only these with him. Only these. What are these? Rope and bow. So that's all the monk has, rope and bow. This is the early, one of the first allowances the Buddha gave. Later on, you have the 8 what they call necessities or supports. You have this, the 3 ropes, and then the bow, and then you have the belt, the needle and thread, water, strainer. Okay. Now the next line is the beautiful one. Here, just as a bird, wherever it goes, flies with his wings as his only burden, so too he is content with ropes to protect his body, and with alms food to sustain his belly. And wherever he goes, he takes only these with him. So here you have a play on words. A bird, 2 wings. And the bird uses its wings, although the wings is a burden, but that burden ironically frees this bird from land. It's able to fly anywhere it wants. Of course, in this imagery, we understand these doings of the bird to refer to the rope and bow, symbolic of the monk's life. But rope and bow alone does not free the monk. Elsewhere, in Dhammapada 372, if I'm not mistaken, you see the Buddha talking about the practice of samatha vipassana. There the Buddha says there is no meditation without wisdom, and there is no wisdom without meditation. The monk who has both, he indeed is in the presence of nirvana. So here we can, include, we can see the two wings as referring to meditation. That this monk meditates, calmness and insight. In fact, we are in the section on meditation. This is the section that begins the training in mental cultivation. Section 15. When he sees a form with the eye, he grasps neither the sign nor the detail. So here the teaching on sense restraint begins. Similarly, when he hears a sound, smells a smell, tastes a taste, feels a touch, or cognizes a mind object when thoughts arises, the monk neither grasps the sign nor the detail. In other words, it's just let go of those things. This is in meditation. The monk lets go all sense stimulus and he focuses on the meditation object. This is why he's meditating. Now, outside meditation, when he has to do work while on retreat, he has full awareness. This is section 16. While going forward or back, he's clearly aware of what he's doing. When looking forward or back, when bending or stretching, in other words, any action of the body, he's fully aware. He's very mindful of what he's doing. In other words, he's there, present. While carrying his upper robe, outer robe and bowl, he's clearly aware. While eating, drinking, chewing and tasting, he's fully aware, or clearly aware. Even in the toilet, voiding and peeing, he's fully aware. While walking, standing, while sitting, while asleep, while awake, while talking, or while remaining silent, he's aware all the time. Aware, clearly mindful, what's going on. At the same time, reflecting on all things as impermanent. So this is his preparation for mental cultivation. Then he seeks out a dwelling. He goes into meditation, the foot of a tree, a forest, the foot of a tree, a mountain, a glen, a hillside cave, a charnel ground, a jungle grove, the open air, a heap of straw. Now, it's quite a long list of places conducive to meditation. Now this line gives us a clue that of the age of the sutta, by the way. So this kind of a bit later, maybe in the second part of the Buddha's 45-year ministry, when many monks were allowed to join even though they have not attained streamlining or any other state. So in other words, they go deep into meditation and then they overcome the 5 mental hindrances. That's number 18. The meditator overcomes covetousness, ill will and anger, sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse, spiritual doubt. Once you see these 5 mental hindrances overcome, it means only one thing. And that's what comes next. The 4 jhanas, or at least the first jhana, arises. And then the first jhana is explained. Now in this sutta, the Buddha also uses the parable of footprints. But this time it's called footprint, not hoofprints. In fact, the Buddha, almost with some humor, he says these are the 4 footprints of the Tathagata, the 4 jhanas. First jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. These are the 4 footprints of the Buddha, of the Tathagata. In other words, if you attain the 4 jhanas, then you go on to attain the 3 knowledges. This is the closing part of the sutta already. This is on page 123, section 23, 23.1 in your book. So here, the meditator goes deep into jhana, then comes out of jhana, then he reflects, recalls his past life. Right? So this is the first knowledge, first of the 3 knowledges, recollection of past lives. Why is this knowledge so interesting? It gives us a good idea why we are what we are now. So in the past we were like this, like that. We did this, we did that, So we know in the past we studied suttas, in the past we also meditated, so that's why it's easy for us to do so in this life. And there are others who did not do that, so you see them now with lots of problems and so on. So we begin to understand, in other words, how we are related to each other, how we're connected with each other too. Then the second knowledge is called a divine eye. This is where the meditator or the person, or when the Buddha during his own early days of meditation is able to recall the past lives of other people, other beings, how they fared in a past life, and how in this life what happens to them. And so this is karma. So here you see the first knowledge is the knowledge of karma, of rebirth rather. Second is of karma. Okay. So, but when we talk about rebirth, both of these knowledges mention rebirth too. But in the case of the knowledge number 2, you see it talks about why some people are born this way, and they know what kind of food they have taken in the past, how they look like in the past. So this deal with rebirth. So there's a second knowledge, and then comes the third knowledge. This is the most important one. The third knowledge is the liberating knowledge, and this is classified under the cultivation of wisdom, section 25. So section 25.1 says, with his mind thus concentrated, purified, and bright, notice the word bright, unblemished, free from defects, pliant, malleable, steady, and utterly unshakable, the monk directs and inclines it to the knowledge of the destruction of the mental influxes. Mental influxes are all those things that come through our senses that make us lustful, wanting to continue living in samsara, and not really want to be free of suffering because we're so caught up with it. That is why you notice the first 4 are the 4 noble truths. So in other words, here we're talking about the Arahat. He understands the 4 noble truths completely, and then all the mental influxes are overcome. He understands the nature of the mental influxes, how they arise, how they end, and then the path to ending all these influxes or all these things that bring about the continuation of rebirth and suffering. And so they awaken. Then, but the awakening is not yet mentioned as something as the Buddha wants to say here. Look at 25.3, it says, this too Brahmin is called the Tathagata's footprint, or the Tathagata's resort, or the Tathagata's scrapings or task marks. However, the noble disciple does not yet come to the conclusion thus. The Blessed One is the fully awakened one, the Dharma is well spoken by the Blessed One, the community of disciples is well practiced. Not yet. In other words, not fully awakened yet. Only with final liberation. 26.1. Thus knowing, thus seeing, the mind is released from the influx of sensual desire. The mind is released from the influx of existence. The mind is released from the influx of ignorance. These are the 3 influxes: sensual desire, existence, ignorance. These are three very settled, very old teachings, very old set. Release from the influxes. This is the Arahat. With release, there is knowledge. Liberated am I. He knows birth is ended, the holy life has been lived. Done is that which must be done or needs to be done. There's nothing further beyond this. This too Brahmin is called the Tathagata's footprint, or the Tathagata's resort, or the Tathagata's scrapings. Thus far, Brahmin, the noble disciple, comes to the conclusion. The Blessed One is the fully awakened one, the Dharma is well spoken by the Blessed One, the community of disciples is well practiced, right? So the Buddha says only here, when the Arahat has attained Arahathood, when Arahathood has been attained, these three statements are fully correct. Thus far, Brahmin, is the parable of the elephant's footprint detailed and complete, right? So the Buddha says, now the parable of the hoof prints are complete. In other words, he also includes the four footprints of the Tathagata. And this is where Jāṇussoṇi is very happy. He takes refuge. Like I said, this is probably the first time he takes refuge, and he's going to do this another dozen times. And he's going to come all kinds of questions, very important questions. And because of him, we have some very important suttas to help us understand the Buddha's teaching better. So here ends the Cūḻa Hatthi padôpama Sutta. Okay, so let us close with a short reflection. The suttas are wonderful occasions for us to meet together in peace and joy, because we are reminded that we can be just what we want to be, truly just be at peace with ourselves. We don't have to do anything in a sense, but just listen to ourselves, listen to the inner silence, just be at peace with ourselves. Even though this moment of joy may be short, it energizes us, it reminds us that true happiness is possible. And whenever we carry with us, wherever we go, this inner peace, whatever we do becomes meaningful, whatever we have becomes much more, and our joy becomes immeasurable. Reflecting in this way is wonderful good karma. By the power of such karma, may we be at peace in this life itself. When we meditate, may our minds be well focused and happy. And most important of all, by all this good power of all this good karma, may we attain spiritual liberation of stream winning, at least in this life itself. In this moment of peace, let us send out our loving kindness to our loved ones, to all those people who have been kind and helpful to us, and also to those who are far away from us, far away from the Dharma, that they may be touched by the Dharma and enjoy happiness and goodness. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.